Welcome to my Death Battle Cast and now officially Fan Battle Cast rankings for February 2025. We have a lot of deep dives to briefly talk about, and a lot of backer matchups to shine a light on. Without further ado, let's begin with my Death Battle Cast portion, starting with Eren Yeager vs. Clive Rosefield. They are both human-looking characters who turn into large monsters, those monsters being seen before as an enemy in their series. I'm not sure of any other connection here. This was another deep dive with, oh my god, is that Torian? God damn, it feels like it's been so long. But anyways, there isn't much to say here. This was just Torian gushing about Final Fantasy XVI. We do hear a couple things about Eren, like how he has blades and can zip around the stage, how he can regenerate after turning into a Titan and even summon other Titans to aid him in battle. That's really it though. Clive honestly didn't get much more. He could turn into Ifrit and steal the powers of the other summons that he defeats, so he has pretty much every elemental ability now. He also has a powerful magical dog and can identify and take advantage of an enemy's weak points. It's pretty obvious even though they didn't go into it much, but Clive wins this. I'm honestly not sure why this is wanted. It just doesn't appeal to me in the slightest. They both have way better opponents, but the Torian banter is something I've missed so much. So even though we don't get a lot of details, this is still such a fun cast. But if the person who pitched this matchup happens to find this video, send something my way to let me know why you want this. Till then, I'm moving on. Number 5, Dave vs. Homura. They are both people who can travel through time to save their friends from the future, both being subversions of their archetypes. Homura is a magical girl in an extremely dark setting, and Dave is a main character who desperately wants to be a side character. There's not many specifics, but you don't need to have a good set of connections to have a fun fight. This was a deep dive into Homestuck, and honestly, I like the way they handled this deep dive so much more than every other episode this month. I've had a lot of criticisms on their deep dives in the past, and even this month it's not that good, but if they do more like this, I think I'll like them a lot more. That's because I think they focus on two things that I think are very important, like how they focus on Homestuck, but make a point to talk about Homura and even have a section where they talk about how this could translate into a real death battle episode. That is all I need with these deep dives. This is what I've been missing. Make it mostly about one series, but then here's the other one, and here's how it connects to our show. For the debate, most of this was trying to understand Homestuck, which is a feat, trust me. I tried to get into Homestuck when I was younger, and it just wasn't my cup of tea. Hell, before this cast, I had asked Chris, one of the guys I do my reactions with, what Homestuck was since I completely forgot it existed. But I can tell why this is wanted. They both control time and can travel through time whenever they wish, and they are both extremely hard to kill. Homura really only got 3 things talked about. Time travel, the fact that she fights using grenades, guns, and other more generic weapons, and the fact that she was able to manipulate the mind of Madoka, who was essentially a god of their world at the time. I can't remember what term they used. I think they called her True Madoka, but I like that they compared Madoka to Dave's type of immortality, since Dave can only die when he sees it as a heroic or just death. It's complicated to understand, but Homura does have some sort of way to negate that. With all that though, Dave wins this. He can make time clones, trap people in time, recall objects through time, can scale to someone who killed the Universe Frog, making him easily universal. The biggest thing he has is his swords, including Excalibur, which can bypass immortality. They say it should be able to destroy Homura without destroying the Soul Gem, but I don't agree. I think that Excalibur can destroy the Soul Gem, but the body is just an empty shell. When the Soul Gem moves a great distance from the body essentially goes limp. The body is nothing, but it wouldn't matter. Dave still wins pretty handedly in my book. He doesn't have any defenses to mental manipulations, but he should scale higher, so he's more likely to kill her before she can really react. Nor does she really have a reliable way to kill him. It's not my favorite Homura matchup, but I still really like it. Number 4, Sadao Mao, which I think that's how you say it, versus Toru. These two are both reverse isekai characters. They both took human shapes and they both work very basic jobs that they are completely loyal to. I can completely see why people want this matchup. It's simple, but it makes so much sense. This was a deep dive into the devil as a part-timer, because I guess people just naturally know what Dragon Maid is? I certainly don't. So parts of this matchup are lost on me. It's probably lost on the cast as well, because it seems like Liam just watched a video on Devil as a Part-Timer, so he's really just regurgitating what he saw in that video. We learn a few things that each of them can do. We learn that they can both transform. Sadao transforms into a sort of demon, and the Dragon Maid transforms into a dragon. The only other thing they bring up for the Dragon Maid is that she is strong enough to split clouds, while Sadao is strong enough to destroy potentially all of Tokyo. Some other abilities that they brought up are his ability to manipulate ki, which is a power source that comes from negative emotions. He can create portals, shoot energy beams, has magic shields, telekinesis, teleportation, can cause pain by staring at people, manipulate minds, create a time field around all of Japan, fly, regenerate, become incorporeal, reflect objects and energy, manipulate physics, put people to sleep, and can expand his arm to create explosions. It's really hard to not just list feats when there isn't a debate to weigh certain feats and abilities against each other. And it's not like I can call a winner or even have an opinion on any of these matchups based on these deep dives. So I'm just gonna say Sadao Mao wins and move on. Number 3, Buffy versus Dean. Both are demon hunters that didn't get to choose their professions. Their professions chose them. They both were willing to give their life for their younger siblings. Both revived after being killed multiple times, and they both visited an alternate universe where the world was completely normal. There's a lot more tiny little connections, but as you can probably see, they have a lot in common. This was a deep dive into Supernatural. First though, I want to bring up what they brought up for Buffy. With all that said and done, now let's talk about Dean. They say he can throw hands with very powerful angels and demons, has specific weapons to kill said angels and demons, has a scythe which killed death itself, has fought Zeus, wielded Mjolnir, has magic to banish demons, and has Cain's knife, which again kills angels and demons. I really wish there was more to talk about debate-wise here, but these deep dives don't really debate, so I can't really talk about them a lot. Personally, I'm pretty sure Dean wins. Buffy does fight someone equivalent to God, but it's quite clear that the two aren't comparable. I really wish they debated this matchup because even after this podcast, Blade vs. Buffy is still a better matchup for me, and I wish that changed. Number 2, The Chosen One vs. Sing. These two are both cartoony live-action kung fu parody movies where they are both seen as a sort of chosen one that saves their worlds from otherworldly invaders. Not deep in terms of connection, but this matchup is perfect. I'm much more familiar with Kung Pao, but now I really need to see Kung Fu Hustle. These two are both cartoon level fighters. Chad reps The Chosen One and Liam reps Sing. The Chosen One is a naturally skilled fighter, someone who could beat up full adults as a newborn. Sing needed to get his ass kicked to unlock his ki, but once he did, he became ridiculously powerful. Not that he needed it though. He was already outspeeding trucks before this, but now he's fast enough to beat someone who can catch a bullet while the Chosen One is fast enough to pluck out many people's eyes really quickly. I wish Chad calced that though, because I'm pretty sure Sing is still faster based on that bullet feat. I'm pretty sure the Chosen One is more powerful though. Sing was able to destroy a building with his ki, while the Chosen One was able to throw an entire spaceship with the being that lives in his tongue. Yes, that's a real thing. Even without his tongue, he can punch a hole straight through someone's chest in a way that makes no sense and makes someone explode with only a flick. He also has gopher chucks, literal gopher nunchucks. He can essentially fly, and has a sort of squirrel armor, which is just a normal squirrel that will tank a hit for him. I think they could probably do a lot more. This seems to be a really close fight, but I think the Chosen One wins this. He just seems a little more busted with how much more mobile he is and how Tongue can greatly extend his range. I kinda wanna see this fight now though. It seems really fun. And number 1, Ice King versus Lord Hater. The connections are that these two are extremely intelligent, angry, and whiny men, who used to be completely different before being turned mad by a powerful artifact. So I'm gonna be real, this is really awkward. Fan Battlecast talked about this matchup first, and I already wrote that section of this video, so I'm not gonna go too deep into my thoughts on this matchup here. Just wait for later. In terms of the debate though, I'd say Liam won. Liam repped Ice King and Galaxy Video Max repped Lord Hater. Liam got Max to concede on the points of how powerful Ice King is, but Max eventually just said, well, I don't like those feats, bro. I think Ice King wins overall, and I'll get to why later. I would just be saying the same things twice in this video, and I honestly think that Fan Battlecast debated this much better, so I'd rather talk about them more. Now let's finally talk about the Fan Battlecasts. I'm so excited. Number 9, the Warrior of Light versus the Guardian. They are both characters that come from online games where you customize those characters almost completely. Both start small before getting strong enough to kill gods and concepts themselves. If there's more connections, I really don't know them. I just know that people have fun debating this matchup. Although I will say this is a really weird one because honestly, I feel like neither side really debated or brought up specifics too much. So I'm gonna try to cover this as best I can. Riddles repped Warrior of Light and Polaris repped the Guardian. Right off the bat, we see a big issue with how the class system works in Final Fantasy XIV, because I'm pretty sure one character can't have every class or ability. So he will have to have limitations here while the Guardian has access to all of his equipment all at once. Potentially thousands of guns, swords, bows and arrows. Some arrows being able to time travel back in time and be shot before the bow actually fires the arrow. He can shoot out black holes, open up other timelines, and even turn someone into a basketball. The Warrior of Light doesn't get very many feats that aren't contested a lot. Ridley brings up that the Warrior of Light defeated the God of Time, so he should be infinite in speed, but the Guardian is disconnected from time, so they'd even out at best. The Warrior of Light has precognition, but the Guardian has defeated characters with future sight before and has something called the Third Eye, which Polaris describes as Ultra Instinct meets the Spidey sense. They can both turn invisible and revive themselves. They both have ways to instantly kill each other. Warrior of Light has level 1 death and the Guardian has a gun that fires the concept of death. meaning that they would normally even out if the Guardian didn't swipe away the Rune of Death, which should have instantly killed the Guardian, but it just didn't. Sure, the Warrior of Light does have plenty of weapons that could be enchanted. I just don't think the Warrior of Light fights on the scale of the Guardian in the slightest. The Warrior of Light's best odds are magic abilities like Sleep and using magic that buffs herself and debuffs her enemies. Those are spells that the Guardian couldn't negate, but honestly probably wouldn't slow him down much. The Warrior of Light summons wouldn't give that much of an advantage either, since the Guardian can summon and create allies like sentient black holes and dark souls. Not to mention the Guardian has better regeneration, is far smarter, is an expert at gunplay to where he can ricochet bullets off of any surface using only his own skills, and has a gun that casually shatters moons. The Guardian takes this based on this debate. Although if they decided that the Warrior of Light could hijack the Guardian's body, it's game over. Number 8, the Guardian versus Tenno. So, this is weird. They did 2 Guardian matchups in 1 month. So I'll be keeping this one shorter since a lot of the information is the same. The connections are the same as the last entry. Just add in the fact that they both use special equipment made from different gods and entities from their universes and that they are both skilled with guns. The Guardian was repped by Wraith this time and Polaris repped Tenno. And this is a much better debate for Guardian than the last one. Sure, Wraith said similar information, but the way he presented his information made more sense and was better structured. In this perfect world where both characters are given every class, I think this debate is pretty close. They kind of rushed past talking about cosmology and scaling because they just ran out of time. Speaking of time, they both have time-related mumbo-jumbo. Again, the Guardian can be immune to time by existing outside of it and can fire weapons that will time travel to the instant before the gun is fired. But the Tenno can rewind time in a way and deflect bullets automatically just by holding his sword out. Tenno can use many swords, guns, and even flying machines and ships to fight, but these all don't compare to a portal he can create to the sun that will fire a giant blast of solar energy at an opponent. If Tenno hit the Guardian with that, I think it would kill his body. But remember, the Guardian can revive himself after becoming a spirit. To be fair, Tenno wouldn't even need to kill the main body according to Polaris. Tenno could just punch the Guardian's soul out of his body and even throw his soul through different portals to kill him, which I think would help him a lot in this debate. Tenno can create a portal into a dimension that is made of a stomach acid that will digest the Guardian. Tenno can also alter fate, but I'm pretty sure the Guardian could do something similar, so it isn't much. They both have weapons that can kill each other. The Guardian has his weapons of sorrow, which can kill concepts, and Tenno has his weapons that use radiation, which we know the Guardian is weak to. Although Tenno does have his Parasithis, which is a sword that can bypass durability and straight up kill the Guardian easily. If Tenno can get close enough, that is. They can both create and summon fighters to help themselves in combat. They all pretty much thought the Guardian would win this, but I give this fight to Tenno, especially since Tenno can use his infestation to kill the Guardian and ghosts. They don't go into how crazy this infestation is, but I think the Guardian has no counter for this and would be killed rather quickly. I like this matchup a lot more than the last one I discussed, and this debate shows the importance of having a good moderator to keep the flow of the debate going. Good job, everyone. Number 7, Roxas versus Starkiller. For connections, they both wield dual blades, and they both technically aren't natural people. I really couldn't find anything else. A lot of people would click on the title of this video and think that this was a debate on Roxas versus Starkiller, but I think I would call this video something different. I would call this Saul not letting Jobber have a single moment of victory. Starkiller stands no chance, and I think that's very clear in this debate. Jobber repped Starkiller and Saul repped Roxas. None of Starkiller's techniques would do much to Roxas. Jobber brings up the Force and how he can hold Roxas in place and crush him, but oh, what's this? Roxas has resisted being held in place before. Damn, that's crazy. Plus, like Saul says, Roxas can just throw magic at Starkiller even if he couldn't break out of the Force. So either way, it wouldn't make a difference. Even if Starkiller got close and tried to hit Roxas with his lightsaber, Roxas could just freeze, burn, or electrocute Starkiller on contact and put him on the back foot. When they went over their feats, we learned that Roxas is far faster and far stronger than Starkiller. So one hit from Roxas's Keyblade would be enough to put Starkiller down. Even if there wasn't a big strength difference, Roxas had abilities like Double Team that would increase his Keyblade's damage when attacking the same opponent over and over. Now, Starkiller can use some force repulsion to disintegrate Roxas, which I do think is an argument that could work, if Roxas didn't have abilities like Once More and Second Chance that would save him from instant kill moves. Saul brings up that Roxas also has access to the Nobodies, which, yes, I do agree he can have that ability, but I don't think he should. It's very unneeded for this debate. I'd play the Simpsons meme of Ralph saying, "Stop, he's already dead," but I'm a little scared of copyright right after I attempted to use Shakugan no Shana footage in a recent video. Roxas can resist Jedi mind tricks, can block Force Lightning with his Keyblade, and has plenty of equipment that will up his stats and resistances. But who wins overall? I'm kidding, it's obviously Roxas. Saul came prepared and Jobber didn't attempt to fight back on certain points after a while, so I'm pretty sure everyone left this cast thinking that this matchup isn't even close. The last thing I want to bring up though is that Jobber made me laugh my ass off He said that Starkiller has Force Rage, which would make him more powerful the angrier he became. And one of his reasons for thinking this would be an advantage is because Roxas hadn't seen someone be this angry before, so it would probably throw him off. I'm not sure if this was meant to be a joke, but it made me smile so hard when watching this debate. It's just so silly. Number 6. Tifa versus Makoto Nijima. They both received a strong sense of justice after the deaths of their fathers that put them on the opposite sides of the law, even though their sides morally were on the right. They both have red eyes, are specialists at punching people, and they both have little crushes on the protagonist of their stories. Well, I mean, it's a bit more complicated than that, but it still counts. There's always a sort of stress that comes with analyzing RPG characters, and that's figuring out how strong they are based on their own cosmologies, which in these two cases are very expansive and confusing. Just to shorten their conversation on scaling, they decided Makoto was more likely faster and stronger, but I'm unsure if they discussed who would be more durable. They talk about how Tifa can survive multiple supernovas and how Makoto can survive and dodge the Big Bang, but I'm honestly unsure of how these two feats directly compare. Kagurabachi reps Tifa and the Dark Lore Master reps Makoto. Of course they had to argue general RPG stuff that both characters would have. Different spells and items to heal, equipment that will buff their stats, etc. They both excel in hand-to-hand combat, but Tifa is probably better since she can do things like suplex giant robots. Honestly though, the real debate comes from their magic and how different their abilities are. Makoto's magic seems better at first, with her being able to use nuclear magic, which would admittedly do a lot of damage to Tifa. But Tifa has ways to reflect magic and negate physical damage with both barrier and reflect materia. I feel like Tifa's normal magic wouldn't do much to Makoto given their power difference, but Tifa does have access to every materia type and has ways to blind, slow down, poison, speed up time only on herself, absorb magic and health, and parry, which probably would work on Makoto's gun since it's a form of physical damage. Oh yeah, Makoto has a gun and it doesn't help her here. Her persona, Johanna, is Makoto's bread and butter. It does nuclear damage like I said before and can turn into a motorcycle that Makoto can ride. Her persona even has the ability to fire the energy of a black hole at an enemy. Lore Master says that even if Tifa reflects Makoto's nuke magic back at herself, then Makoto could use a move to make her resistant to nuke magic. Kagura mentioned the materia where Tifa can cast Death, which will automatically kill an opponent after some time has passed. But Lore Master mentions Homunculus, which saves the user from instant death attacks. Tifa could transform Makoto into a toad, which Lore Master says shouldn't work because of how the P3 cast resisted the Dark Hour. I understand where this logic is coming from, but I don't think the two abilities are comparable. Plus, I believe they mentioned that the P5 cast has been transmuted before. One interesting note is that they bring up how the metaverse functions, by making perception into reality. Things like rumors or reputation can make Makoto stronger, but this would also work for Tifa, who would have a grand reputation based on her affiliation with Avalanche. Outside of the metaverse, Makoto is just a normal person, so this fight must happen within that realm. The last thing I'll mention is that Tifa can have multiple summons, including multiple ultra-powerful Bahamets and most importantly the Knights of the Round, who could drag Makoto out of her dimension and depower her. Sure, this idea is contested in the podcast, but this is such an interesting idea that I personally think could work on Makoto. But then sadly we learn about the Omnipotent Orb, which has some reality warping properties, and it makes this so much more one-sided. Makoto wins this by far. None of the people on the cast even debated that fact. Sure, Tifa could steal the Omnipotent Orb, but with Makoto's speed difference, I doubt it would ever be successful. Kagura tried his hardest to argue a Tifa win, but even at the end of the podcast he admits that he also thinks Makoto wins. I think this is a fine matchup overall. Not my favorite, but I wouldn't be upset if Death Battle made this one. Number 5. Archie Sally versus Star Butterfly. These two are princesses who have rebelled against evil rulers to maintain peace in their kingdoms. They are both leaders of a group of teenagers who fought for freedom. They have both been trained since they were really young to be powerful fighters who wield magical artifacts. They both didn't want to be rulers initially, but had the rules pushed onto them, and they both lost their magical abilities at the end of their series. These are way better connections than I initially thought, and the debate is really fun as well. Noah of Fan Battle fame reps Star Butterfly, and Sherm of Fan Battle cast fame reps Archie Sally. When people hear Archie, they would immediately assume that Sally would win this. Although I don't think it's that simple. When looking at their arsenal, sure, Sally's looks more impressive. I mean, she has laser guns to shoot at people, warp rings to let Sally teleport around, different power rings / red rings that can boost her speed, give sentience to objects and manipulate emotions, and she has holograms that can fool extremely intelligent robots. Star Butterfly relies on her magic to win fights. Noah argues that she is a good hand-to-hand fighter, but I agree with Sherm with thinking that not only is Sally a more experienced fighter, she's most likely a far better strategist as well. Sherm brings up that when Sally was roboticized, she was able to casually just defeat Sonic and friends just from the fact that she had analyzed their abilities and already thought of ways to exploit their weaknesses beforehand. Star's magic lets her summon and shoot mass amounts of objects at an enemy, stop time, transmute objects, send people to other dimensions, grow a person's hair rapidly to suffocate them, create illusions, wipe memories, summon creatures, and has an ability called the Whispering Spell, which could really make a difference in this debate. This spell could cancel out the magic of Sally's Warp Rings and possibly even the Time Stones. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention it, but Sherm says that she has access to the Time Stones. But from what it sounded like, she's never used them. I'd argue that if she's never used them before, why would she use them now? Even without that though, Sally has ways around Star's other abilities. She's from Archie, so as long as she can fight side by side with the Sonic cast, stopping time wouldn't do anything to her because she would scale to their speed. She has her Warp Rings to just return to the fight if Star warped her anywhere, and there's some arguments that the Whispering Spell wouldn't work on the Sword of Acorns, which I'll get into in a second. The one thing that I'm unsure if Sally could defend against is being put in an illusion. I didn't hear any counters to that brought up in this debate. Well, now that I think about it, I don't think Sally has an answer to transmutation either. Noah brings up how she could transmute Sally into a tentacle and make her fall in love with Star. That is a legitimate win con, but more often than not, I think Sally takes this. Sally should be able to scale to Supersonic with the Sword of Acorns, as annoying as that is. I was actually getting a little annoyed with Sherm since he kept comparing Sally to Supersonic without actually showing any images or giving any examples of her being at that level. He finally showed images at the end of the podcast, but I was ready to be like, where's the proof, man? We see that the Sword of Acorns was able to defeat Enerjack, a being that both Supersonic and Super Knuckles were struggling against. A clash between Supersonic and Super Knuckles nearly destroyed their entire universe with their power, and Sally using the Sword of Acorns was able to defeat the opponent that they couldn't even defeat. That's a level of power Star, even in her Super Saiyan form, couldn't contend with. Sally also has an AI assistant named Nicole, who can make a force field that a clash between Supersonic and Enerjack couldn't break. This AI can also copy and analyze magical abilities, so even with the Whispering Spell, Star would just get analyzed and countered. Again, not to say Star doesn't have any win cons, like trapping Sally in an illusion and destroying her when she can't react or wiping her mind. But Sally has done things like leave her own comic book to convince the writers to change the story, which I don't think Star has an answer for. Now for the complicated arguments. Both have infinite parallel universes and both have outsped people who are embodiments of space and time, so they both should have infinite speed. Sherm brings up that Sally's infinity could be bigger than Star's infinity. Could this apply here? Who knows? But for those wondering, yes, certain infinities can be larger than others. It's a very complicated concept to grasp. The best way to understand it is that infinities come in many different forms, like countable infinities, which are smaller and can be measured with natural numbers. Natural numbers are numbers that we can count, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Those numbers would essentially just be counting up from 1 to infinity. Uncountable infinities are made of real numbers. Real numbers are made of fractions, irrational numbers, and positive/negative integers. These essentially encompass any number a person can envision, except imaginary numbers. But because of this, uncountable infinities can't be measured in the same sense, as instead of just counting up like what I said before, it includes every single fraction, every single negative, and every single positive. Think of a singular versus a group. A countable infinity is one set of infinities, and an uncountable infinity is an infinite group of infinities. Or you can just go with what Neil deGrasse Tyson says and say that infinity in one is still larger than infinity, which is true, but I just find it so funny and so simplified. Maybe I explained this badly, I'm not sure. It doesn't even really connect to this debate at all. I just kinda wanted to nerd out about it. I just find ideas like this fun. Yay, math! Anyways, let's move on and start talking about the fan battles again. Number 4, Ice King versus Lord Hater. Connections, you saw the other one. In this debate, Saul repped Ice King and Moloch repped Lord Hater, and they both did a really good job here. I'll just bang out their scaling here since they spend the last 30 minutes of their debate bringing up scaling and showing examples. Yeah, I don't think Lord Hater comes close in scaling. Saul made really good arguments for the Ice King's speed, and even though Lord Hater is impressive, I really doubt he comes close in speed even with his equipment. Ice King's main ability, obviously, is manipulating ice in many ways. So Moloch bringing up the blue beam that's on Lord Hater's bike is a very good point. If that beam couldn't keep him frozen, then Ice King shouldn't be able to keep him frozen either. Speaking of tech, many pieces of equipment are brought up for Lord Hater. He has a bike that has that same blue beam on it, as well as other things that shoot lasers and a pizza launcher. He has the Defense Protocol XO973, which is a mech that he controls with his gauntlets. He can even control this mech remotely. And he also has spaceships that have lasers and could potentially blow up entire solar systems. This is all impressive equipment, but like Saul said, since the Ice King can turn invisible, it's game over, baby. I'm just kidding, although that does give Ice King a pretty big advantage. Ice King could also freeze people in ice. Even though it wouldn't work on Lord Hater himself, his minions are a different story. Saul did bring up a plethora of other abilities the Ice King has, like flying with his beard, although Lord Hater can also fly and probably has better flight. On the topic of Ice King's beard though, apparently he has flakes in his beard that will send a virus into a person and turn them into an ice creature. They can both shoot lightning, but Ice King's lightning can create create ice creatures just like his beard flakes. Speaking of armies, the only thing that is brought up for Lord Hater is that he has the Watchdog army, who have lasers that can disintegrate a person. He has a giant ship and has a special unit called Commander Peeper, although I can't quite remember if Moloch expanded on what makes him so special at all. The same goes for Saul with Gunther. The only thing I have in my notes is that he's actually a demonic being called Orgalorg, and that he has an ability called Demonic Wishing Eye, which can create glass duplicates of whatever he wants. One unit Moloch did expound on is a character named Commander Tim, who he says can tear through whole spaceships and melt steel with acid. Now let's get into what I think are the most important factors for my decision on who wins. Ice King has abilities like firing a beam that makes people friendly. He has a love potion that will remove your heart and make it sentient. Sleeping gas, mind control with a ring and some crystals. And he can even make this a tie by having his crown, what gives the Ice King his powers. Create an ice age upon Ice King's death. Lord Hater can use telekinesis and make force fields to deal with any projectile attacks. Can survive as long as part of his body survives. And most importantly, is far smarter and not as crazy as Ice King. I think stats and abilities wise, Ice King is far more impressive, but he is easily distracted and can get taken advantage of pretty easily. Gunther as well, but nothing Lord Hater can do can contend with the Imagination Zone, an area where Ice King has complete control of everything. As good as Moloch did with debating, there was absolutely nothing he could do to contest with this feat. So at the end of the day, my vote goes for Saul and Ice King because of the Imagination Zone. Better hacks and better stats. Although if Lord Hater did just kill Ice King with a spaceship from outer space, Ice King would probably just die and take the L. Nice job to both of you though. I didn't know anything about these series, and now I love this matchup. Number 3. Quote versus Reg. I got these connections straight up from the person who pitched this. They are both amnesiac robots who go spelunking with a blonde-haired girl. They form a deep bond with both this girl and a human-turned furry, eventually coming face-to-face with an evil doctor who was name-dropped multiple times until his appearance. This debate started a little bit on the awkward side, but it does get a lot better after the beginning of the podcast. This is natural since not only were they having technical difficulties, they are new to this kind of podcast or debate, so it doesn't bother me too much here. Riddles represents Quote and Gilded Data represents Reg. It honestly seems like stats versus equipment for this fight. Quote has different fireballs, lightning beams, laser beams, missile launchers, machine guns, etc. He does have some non-conventional equipment like the Snake, which works like Samus's Wave Beam, a beam of energy that passes through objects. He has a sword that can shoot ghosts out, which what the fuck, and the Bubble Gun, which is a shield made of bubbles that is more durable than it sounds. Quote has a better defensive item called the Whimsical Stars, which are mini stars that act as a shield that can also be used to harm enemies. All of his weapons have up to 3 levels, with level 3 being the best version of each weapon. Well, except for the Nemesis, Bloodrake. This weapon shoots lightning in its first level, and little duckies in its last. Aw, so cute. Quote's machine gun at full power can let Quote fly. Although he has the booster as a better flight option, it's just a jetpack. Lastly, he has the Spur, which is a gun that shoots light blasts. Now that honestly might be a problem for Reg. Is there a way to justify Reg being at light speed? Well, give me one sec. Let me listen to what Gilded Data says. Oh, Reg is calced at 5.2 times the speed of light, and Quote is calced anywhere from half the speed of light to light speed itself. Damn, Reg could be 10 times faster if that's true. It's true that Quote's AP is calced from city to large island level in this cast, so he is definitely stronger. Well, we didn't get any number for Reg himself, but Gilded Data did fold and say Quote is more powerful, although I just don't know by what amount. Back to speed though, not only could Reg dodge Quote's beams of light, but he could just reflect them with his arms. Reg's arms are sort of robotic, being able to shoot out like a rocket punch and be pulled back by a string. His arms can extend about 40 meters, or about 131 feet for my American audience. This makes me think that Quote loses his range advantage, seeing as not only can Reg's arms deflect Quote's attacks, he can also spin his hands together to make them like a drill, and can use them to climb surfaces quickly. The wires on his arms can also act like nerves and let him feel when other people are around him to detect danger, meaning Quote won't get a surprise attack on him, although I don't think that's Quote's style of combat anyways. Reg is also durable as hell, being able to have his inside shredded and still come out alright. Quote is not as durable, I believe, but he does have ways to heal himself with the life pot. What determines the winner for me though, other than the speed, is the Incinerator. Quote is physically stronger like I said. He can even make himself more powerful with the Demon Crown or Undead Core, but the Incinerator would get past any of Quote's weapons or defenses no matter how powerful they are. The Incinerator is a laser that Reg can shoot from his hands and feet. These blasts could be small like a javelin or large like a Kamehameha. Reg's laser can bypass durability and destroy a person's body and soul, with both Riddles and Gilded Data agreeing that the life pot wouldn't be able to heal any part of Quote's body that was hit with the Incinerator. Now, I don't want to make this seem like an easy call because it's not. Quote is definitely more experienced, and with his power, could probably one-shot Reg if he hit him hard. I just think that Reg is too quick and would take Quote down with his laser before Quote can land a good hit. I think this is probably the best matchup for both, and it seems so fun. There's just two matchups I like a little more than this one. Number 2. Joe versus Strider. Their connections are that they are both ninjas who fought aliens and giant robots. I couldn't find any more connections on this, honestly. So I should address the elephant in the room here. I am part of this podcast, to which I will have to thank Sherman the crew for letting me be on. But that doesn't mean I'm still not going to voice my opinions if someone didn't debate well or didn't make any sense. I want everyone here to gain confidence and become better debaters. So I'm still going to judge them based on how they did. Although with this debate, they have nothing to worry about. Round 1 represented Musashi, and I believe is the person who pitched this matchup, and Ulix represented Strider. The back and forth was so fun here. They both brought up crossover scaling, since Joe has fought characters like Spider-Man, Batman, and Mechagodzilla before, while Strider has fought against the Street Fighter cast. Personally, I wouldn't use crossover scaling in my argument, since I'm pretty sure Joe's crossovers aren't actually the real people, and crossing over with Street Fighter for Strider seems kinda cheap. But honestly, using both makes this debate a little bit funnier. They both can turn this into an army fight, since Strider has control of a bunch of mechanical animals that can carry explosives, shoot fire, and generally attack foes. And Joe has his 8 hands magic, which could create multiple invincible clones that will fight by Joe's side for a short period of time. With that and Joe's different types of magic like tornado, meteor, earth, or lightning magic, I think Joe would be able to wipe out Strider's army easily, but not Strider himself. They both have defeated mechs, but Strider's sword is far more impressive. Like Raiden from Metal Gear Solid, Strider's sword would be able to continuously weaken Joe's until it would just break it outright. They both have a limited magic and energy supply, so I think their limits might be a moot point at the end of the day, as well as the fact that they can both heal themselves and become invulnerable. Neither of them can fly, but Strider has omnidirectional air movement. Essentially, he can kind of dash around in the air like we see with the Ragnarok attack. And Joe has his flying squirrel magic, which can let him glide in the air. I don't think either character has an aerial advantage, but Joe definitely has the long range advantage. Joe has things like kunai, grenades, nunchucks, and a machine gun, but I don't think those would do much to Strider. Joe should be stronger based on his scaling to the elemental gods, the earthquake that Hirogo made, and the destruction of the Black Stone helicopter. Strider should be faster based on the fact that he can react to lasers, while Joe just seems to be lightning speed. Round 1 brings up that Joe could have precognition based on his comic series, but personally I'd have to look into how closely the games are tied together with the comics. But my mindset right now is that I wouldn't use it for this debate. Joe could shield himself with electricity, force his body to explode, stop time, and even summon fire dragons. But even with all of this, I don't think it would give Joe the win over Strider's speed advantage. Strider can use Cypher to reflect any type of projectile and can encase people in ice with just a touch. With Strider's significant speed advantage, I think he's got a really good shot at victory. Joe would have to overpower Strider and somehow get the jump on him, which honestly with his 8 hands magic, I can see it happen. But do I think it's likely for Joe to win? I'm actually going to go against what I voted for in the podcast. I'm gonna say Joe wins this. Now, I think Strider should win this based on the speed advantage, but this is who would win a death battle specifically. They said that Bardock loses to Omni-Man, even though Bardock at base was trillions of times faster. Joe has every advantage in this fight except speed in my eyes. So if we went by the logic death battle uses, I'm sure they'd still give Joe the win. This is a really fun matchup though, and even though I want Ryu Hayabusa versus Joe Musashi more, I wouldn't mind this as an alternative choice, especially since it's a much closer debate. And finally, number 1, Buggy versus Master Koga. These two are very silly leaders of their own crews who seem incompetent at first, but who are very smart and devious in their own ways. They both gain powers that make them formidable in their own series and become actual threats at various parts of their stories. I fell in love with this idea immediately and was super excited to hear the debate on this one. In this debate, Moloch represents Buggy and Overlord Albane represents Master Koga. They made this matchup seem really fun, and it's probably my favorite matchup I've heard in quite a while. Buggy has an obvious advantage here, seeing that he uses the devil fruit that can separate his body parts into smaller floating pieces, like having his arms detach or being able to strangle someone from across the room. His body can naturally react to any blade trying to cut him, meaning that if Buggy is cut, his body will just separate and no damage will be dealt. This is a big problem for Koga, because things like his blades, sickles, and Demon Carver would have no effect on Buggy. There's a chance that Koga could hit Buggy with his bow, but I'm pretty sure Buggy would be fast enough to dodge any arrow or kunai that Koga throws. Now Buggy can float every part of his body body except for his feet, of course. But Koga can also fly, so it's not much of an advantage. Moloch and Albane both made really good comments about how they should scale close to each other, but I think Buggy just naturally scales higher. Albane, however, did argue that Koga can use the mighty banana to heal himself and up his attack power, so that could make up the power difference and give Koga the edge. Buggy fights very unconventionally and has many weapons to help him in this fight, like his knives that he can essentially shoot from his body parts, the Buggy Ball, which is a massive destructive cannonball that will wreck city blocks, the Monkey Ball explosions, which are smaller Buggy Balls that Buggy stores within his body. He can attach blades to his feet that he can throw like a Destructo Disc. Buggy can store any item inside of his body and bring them out whenever he wants, but Koga can just summon crazy stuff out of nowhere, things like massive metal spike balls which can explode, with Koga even being able to move these telepathically. He can summon many vehicles with flamethrowers or laser blasters, including a metal mech suit that he can wear. The problem comes with Buggy being super hard to hit, with him being able to detach his body and all. But Albane did have some creative ways to take the win, two of which do essentially the same thing. Koga was able to fight the 4 Ganon Blights and was able to stun them for long enough for himself to escape, which should work on Buggy's parts. Or Koga could create barriers to lock Buggy inside of an arena, protect himself, or could even trap Buggy's individual parts. If Koga could trap Buggy like that, he has a trusty eye laser that could potentially disintegrate Buggy's whole body. With that and other abilities where Koga can teleport and cause a sort of earthquake attack where rocks and spikes shoot out from the ground, I think Koga wins this. It would be a tough fight for sure, but Koga having ways to get past Buggy's Devil Fruit can play a major factor here. I think it could go either way, but more times than not, Koga wins. This was a good month for Fan Battlecast, getting all sorts of personalities into the debate seat and letting the matchups truly shine. I think each stream needs a dedicated moderator though. Both the Guardian versus the Warrior of Light and Reg versus Quote could have benefited greatly from that and helped avoid any awkward moments in the cast. But overall, good job guys. And Santi, I'm set to debate you on your channel in March, so please let your losing streak continue. You may be wondering why I haven't said anything about Death Battlecast proper. There isn't really much to say. They only debated a couple matchups this month and I still don't like their deep dive format. I do think their Homura vs Dave cast is their best deep dive yet though. It lets us know why the matchup is good and not just why the series is good. But I had fun making this overall. Until next time though, everyone take care and have a wonderful day.